be live, I think. I'm
I don't see anything on your channel. Oh, I see it now. I see you're starting soon. Cool. Yep.
I think we can start. I guess. I don't know if there's anyone already. I hope they are. They should really be there. Live stream and okay. We can start. So hello everyone. I feel so lucky to have Arben with me today. Passionate about storytelling and the emotional power of games, not so many indie developers manage to capture the heart of players as effectively as you have. Your debut project, Farewell North, takes players on an unforgettable journey through a world drained of color where experience becomes a metaphor for healing and rediscovery. I can confidently say that this project resonated with me deeply. I felt that connecting while playing the demo, and I can't wait to buy the full game. I'm waiting for that day. So today I'm thrilled to have you here with me. Welcome on this channel.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm very
And
glad.
thank you for the kind words. It's really kind of you to say.
Yeah, I really, really like the game. I'm still waiting for the day when I can play it like fully, just one day for the game. Now, can you,
Nice.
yeah. Now, can you tell us about your journey into game development? What inspired you to take the first step into this creative field?
Yeah. So I went to school for software engineering. So I'm a software engineer by trade. I worked full time as a software engineer for about 12 years. But pretty much as soon as I like my first day of school, learning to write like my first line of code, like a hello world in Java. I went home and I was like messing around playing, making games on like the command line, just little like tic tac toe and stuff like that. And yeah, I feel like learning to code really kind of like opened my eyes to what's possible. Um, and then yeah, like I said, for about 12 years, I worked as a software engineer full time. But throughout that entire period, I was always kind of like dabbling in games, like as a side hobby. But never anything like too promising. It took a while to kind of like build up all the skills and everything to like make a game that I felt like I could be like proud of and like really like go all in on. And so that ended up being Feral North. But even when I started Feral North, I didn't think that it was going to be like a full game. Like I kept saying to myself, like I'm gonna release my first game and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't. I don't think like deep down I actually like believed that. I figured it was probably gonna be another project that ended up on like the kind of graveyard of game dev projects that I have kind of over that last 12 years. But something about it really clicked, and it just like felt good, and I feel like I had kind of like been at it long enough that I had like the skills to actually like make a full game that I could be proud of. Like I said, and I started sharing clips on like Twitter and stuff, and it seemed like it really kind of connected with people. So for 3 years, I was still working full time while working on the game on the side. And around the end of year three, I was like, I'm never gonna finish this if I don't go all in. I was kind of at a position at work where it was like time for something new, anyways. And I was kind of thinking like I couldn't really see myself like I was so tired from working on the game like every morning and every night. I couldn't see myself like really starting a job and like going all in on that and like putting my best foot forward. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take a year off. I'm gonna finish this game, and I'm gonna put everything I have into it and just see like what happens. So yeah, so that was the last year working full time on Farewell North, finishing it up, which is really stressful and a lot of fun and really terrifying at the same time. But yeah, that's my kind of long-winded answer of yeah how I got to this point of making games.
Yeah, very interesting journey. I'm curious, were there any specific games or developers that influenced your decision to pursue game development?
Like any that I spoke to, or
Yeah,
what do you
like
mean?
only even for example, if you saw them somewhere on the internet or you met them in person, or
Yeah, I mean, quite a few. I think the decision to go full time, that was actually more of just a conversation with my wife of, you know, it was kind of more her hyping me up rather than like me asking for permission or anything like that. Like I was like, I'd been talking about it for so long and I was kind of scared to do it. I don't think I would have actually pulled the trigger and gone for it um if it wasn't for her. But she was actually the one who kind of like pushed me and kind of gave me the confidence to be like, you know what, this game's got an audience that people seem to be connecting with, it has potential, and you know, worst come to worst, just get a job again. Like it's not that big a deal. Um, but in terms of other game developers, you know, like there's a great community on Twitter and stuff. But I don't think I ever really spoke to anyone about going full time. I think that was kind of like just a personal decision, and like I knew it wasn't a smart like financial decision or anything like that. Like it was in all likelihood going to be a mistake in that perspective. So I think it was kind of like embarrassed, but you know, I didn't know if I wanted to like put that out there if I wasn't gonna actually do it. So it was kind of just like I just kind of made the decision with with my wife and I and just went for it.
I really respect that. It takes a lot of courage to do it, and you know, I hope it turned out it's gonna pay off. And yeah, the game is great.
Yeah,
It's really great.
thank you. I really appreciate that.
Now talking again about the game, what was the initial concept behind Survival North? How did it evolve over time? Or it was like, oh, I already know what I want to do and I'm just gonna start doing it.
Oh, sorry, I just see a comment there from Ilox in the
Yeah,
YouTube saying that your mic's not coming through well.
really. Oh, okay, my bad then. Let me check.
Also, hi Ilox. Alex
Um,
is one of the admins on my Discord.
thank you for loading. I can barely. Oh, okay. I'm sorry for that. Okay, yeah, I see that. Oh, and give me 1 minute.
No worries.
Oh, I think, yeah, okay. Now I think I know why. Could be maybe a bit. Hmm. Let's now. Can you hear me well? Is it okay for you, or it's also like that, Kyle? Or
Oh, yeah, it is kind of muffly for me as well.
not the best thing? I'm sorry for it. Hmm. Okay, so fine.
I wouldn't worry about me. I'm fine as long as it's okay for the stream. I don't know if it's the
Um,
same in Discord or what.
I'm sorry. What about now? Is it better or is it still the same?
It's the same for me.
Is it worse or
Now it sounds really far away. I don't know if it's like
really
your
far away?
laptop
Okay.
mic or something.
I'm gonna maybe give up the mic for now. I will try like this. Okay. What about now? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear. It's a little quiet, but I can hear.
It's a little bit quiet. Okay. I will try my best to talk as well as I can. Hopefully, I will fix it when I will edit the video. I'm very sorry, but I don't know what happened. But
Yeah, no worries.
mhm. Okay. So back to the question. What was the initial concept of what was the initial concept behind server run? How did it evolve over time, or was it just like that?
No, not at all. It was not a fully planned out game at all. It started as something completely different. It started as like a weekend project called Comfy Boy, and it was just a little silly game about my chihuahua trying to find the comfiest seat in the house. Had absolutely nothing to do with anything to do with what it actually ended up being. But yeah, it kind of just evolved. Like it started, like I said, it's just a silly little game. And then I always, like, my brain always just goes to like more emotional storytelling. So anytime I try to make something that's not emotional, it just ends up going that way for some reason. So I added an emotional beat, and then the Chihuahua didn't fit, so we got replaced with a Border Collie. And then I was inspired by my move to Scotland, and we had gone into lockdown, and I was like, well, this would be an interesting way to explore Scotland since I can't like physically go around. So then it got set in Scotland, and then yeah, everything just kind of like evolved. But it was not planned at all from the beginning. I think it took probably like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months for it to look anything like what it eventually became. And yeah, and then it took like probably 2 years to really kind of like understand what the game actually was. You know what I mean? They went through like a lot of like kind of diversions and different paths and some pretty bad ideas along the way. And then it eventually kind of like honed in on what it actually became. But it took a long time, and it was not planned well at all.
Yeah, I feel like you have to be very flexible when quit your job and pick your own game. So like if it doesn't work, then I have to find something else instead. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's very interesting though. It sounds like a dream job actually for me though.
Yeah,
Um,
kind of, but it's also extremely stressful at the same time. So I don't want to glamorize it necessarily, but like when there's some days where you're just kind of like sitting there spinning your wheels trying to figure out how to make something work. Not necessarily like technically, but like make it fun or make it interesting or make it thematic or whatever it is. That kind of stuff, like you can just sit there for days and there's like you can't really rush that. But when it's your job and you have to like come up with a solution because you have deadlines or you're running out of money or whatever, it gets pretty stressful. But it is a lot of fun. I couldn't imagine anything better, honestly.
yeah, that's great to hear though. I think I'm very passionate about psychology, mental health, and emotional well-being. These seem to be couple things in your game. How important is it to you that your games explore deeper personal themes and do you feel games can have a therapeutic effect?
Yeah, for sure. I think games have, I'm not the first person to say this, but I think games have a pretty special and kind of unique dynamic because it's something that the player can't just be a passive observer. They have to be actively involved in. They have to like go through the motions of whatever the experience is. Um, and so I think games are pretty like uniquely suited for that. And I think we tried to lean into that. I can't really talk about that without getting too spoilery, but there's a couple areas of the game where like we very deliberately made sure that the player couldn't just like sit and watch a cutscene. They had to like go through some of the heavier moments just to make sure that they actually experience it and they kind of go through a journey as well. So I think games are pretty uniquely suited for that, which is interesting. And I think for me personally, like I said, my brain always just kind of like goes in that direction, no matter what. No matter what it is, I was prototyping a few ideas since Farewell North released, and one of them was a very silly, like, you know, loud, explosive, ridiculous game. But immediately, like an hour into kind of prototyping this, my brain is like, oh, but then there could be this story and this person could have this and this, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it is, but that's just like what I get the most kind of kick out of, I would say. Um, so I like games that can kind of like make you cry or make you feel something, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I like playing those and I like making those, and that's just kind of where my brain goes.
Yeah, storytelling is the key, also in games, I feel like. And now my
Mhm.
question is, how do you approach taking a balance between narrative and gameplay in your project? Is there one aspect you prioritize more, or do you both need to evolve together?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's actually something I'm kind of struggling with right now when I look at like what comes next. I think I prioritize narrative way higher than gameplay. Um, I enjoy like playing walking sims. That's not something that like bores me. I like as long as they can tell a really gripping story, I'm 100% on board. And so I don't mind. Like I said, I don't mind walking sims, and I kind of like veer towards that in terms of what I was creating. I think with Feral North, because I was making it kind of in public, like on YouTube and on Twitter and all that. Um, I maybe kind of like went more gamey with it than I would have otherwise, just because a lot of the feedback was like, yeah, but what do I actually do? Or like, you know what I mean? Like people kind of asking for a bit more, so I added more mechanics and stuff. And I think a lot of people still a lot of the reviews, um, I would say, put story and audio as like the number one thing, and gameplay was a little bit lower down the list in terms of like it's not the most varied. But to me, that's not a fault. Like to me, like that's the kind of games that I like to play. I like to play games that tell a story first and foremost. And if the mechanics kind of get in the way of that, I actually find that to be a negative. Like I would rather less is more kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look forward to the next game, I do want to kind of get better at actual game design and making interesting mechanics and fun gameplay. So that's something I'm trying to balance. Is like, can I, you know, take what I've kind of like learned in terms of telling an interesting story and add more kind of gaminess to that without kind of taking away from the story. And I think that would kind of be like the best of both worlds. But I have a lot to learn there. Like I'm definitely more of a storyteller rather than like a game designer, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like your game also because it's about exploration and discovering, and there are not a lot of things like that on the market, or at least I didn't find them. I played the first day, which was great, and right after that, I saw you on Thomas Brag's interview, and I got very, very curious about the game, and then I started to try the demo. I think that was back in Spring, in May or something like that. I also gave some
Something like
feedback,
that, yeah.
yeah, on Steam, and I did something, and I was like, oh my god, I can't wait to play the game. So I'm still waiting for that day. This university keeps me very busy. Yeah.
Fair
Mm,
enough.
yeah. What's your favorite part of the game development process? Ideation, coding, design, or something else?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, sorry. What's your favorite part of the game development process? Ideation,
Uh,
coding, design, or something else?
Um, Definitely coding. Like I'm really am a software engineer at heart, and like my form of procrastination, like I know if I'm procrastinating if I start going into like optimization and stuff, because that's just like my favorite thing, and it's super geeky, but like shaving a few milliseconds off of something, like some algorithm or whatever it is I just get so much satisfaction out of that. Like it's just to me that is the most interesting game, is optimizing things. So yeah, there's a lot of systems in Feral North that are like way more optimized than they need to be, or way over engineered, or whatever. And that's mostly because I was procrastinating on like some other element of the game that I probably should have been working on. Um, so yeah, coding, shaders as well. Like I really, really love working on shaders. I just find that to be really satisfying. It's like a perfect blend of art and engineering. So that's a lot of fun. And I was just reading the comments. Hey, Jason Story. Disappointed by games that don't. Yeah, Jason's saying he's
Yeah.
disappointed by games that tell a story but not through the medium. And yeah, I
So,
100% agree with that. Like I think games have a really unique kind of advantage in storytelling,
mhm.
and I love finding ways to kind of explore that. So yeah, I completely agree. But yeah, back to the question. Definitely coding, shaders, optimization, all that kind of engineering side of things, the tech art side. I love that stuff.
And I guess you're using C# or which programming language? C#, right?
Yeah, C sharp in C sharp and HLSL in Unity. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and also we got a question from I think, that says, how do you balance workload versus personal life, not burn yourself out or slack off?
That's also something I'm trying to figure out for the next game. I think the last year, I made a lot of mistakes in that regard. Like I really burnt myself out. I got like really depressed for the last few months,
Oh,
and that wasn't kind of fair to my wife. I don't think it was very productive. I was, yeah, I'm not fun to be around for the last year. So going forward, I'm trying to be a little bit more strict about like shutting down my computer and walking away from it at the end of the day. Not working more than like 8 or 9 hours, kind of thing. Um, in terms of slacking off, I don't really have that problem. I'm pretty not motivated, but pretty like I guess persistent. Like I will open my computer and just work for 8, 10, 12 hours straight if I don't force myself to stop. I am since Spiral North has released, I'm trying to like take my time before starting the next project, so I am kind of giving myself more room to like play video games and do stuff that I haven't been able to do for the last few months. And I'm also trying to kind of be a little bit more like thoughtful about what the scope of the next game is, so that I don't end up in another situation where I need to like crunch for 6 months straight. Like the last like July and August, right before Feral North released, there was a lot of like literal all-nighters with myself and my composer, just sitting there working, 12 hours straight all through the night. Um, and I was waking up at 4 a.m. and going to bed at, 8 p.m. or whenever I was done for the day, and like just working all through every single day, like 16-hour days. So yeah, I'm trying to just make sure I don't do that again, because it was really unproductive and really just a bad time all around. Just not fun. Don't recommend it.
Yeah, I see. As an indie developer, what were some of the biggest lessons you've learned while working on Parallel North or any other project?
I mean, there's tons of like technical stuff and like how to do such and such thing in Unity or whatever. Like, but I don't think that's the most interesting. I think the biggest thing I learned is really just how important scope is. And I'm kind of disappointed because I knew this, because like I said, I was a software engineer by trade. I was a technical lead for a long time, so I was managing the scope of teams and making sure that we weren't overcommitting and stuff like that. But then I made all those mistakes that I should have known about in my own personal project. And I think, Feral North's not the biggest game in the world, and you might look at it and be like, oh, it's only like 5 hours long or whatever. And it doesn't seem maybe like from the outside that it is that big of a game, but for a single person, it really is a huge project. I don't think people necessarily always understand like how big even the most basic game is, especially when you start like porting and you deal with all the requirements of Nintendo and Xbox and all this kind of stuff. Like things just get way bigger than they seem on the surface. Um, and so I really, really learned like what overscoping means, and what that kind of like does to your kind of work-life balance and your personal life and everything. So yeah, I think that was the biggest lesson, and something I'm definitely going to try and carry forward to future projects, and making sure that the scope is actually manageable for a single person.
Mhm. Yeah, interesting. Coding, I think it's a very important part in terms of like telling your game and actually many people don't care about it. So I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out the best platform, or I'm at the very beginning of game development. So yeah, but I feel like it's very interesting, and I feel like you constantly can learn new stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
You never stop learning. Yeah, game
exactly.
development is like way too big of a
Mm-hmm.
discipline to ever like feel like you actually know everything. And even when you do feel like you know everything, like at the end of Feral North, I was feeling like very confident that like I can make anything now, blah blah blah. And as I'm starting this project, I'm already learning all new things. And Unity 6 just came out, so there's a whole bunch of stuff to learn there. Like, so you just never stop learning. And I think that's actually a lot of the fun of game development too, right? Is like it never gets evolving. It's always growing. There's always new stuff to learn. And I think that's like, to me, the most exciting thing.
Yeah, and the people in this field are very interesting. Like, I didn't expect to start a sort of a series with interviews with game developers, and even though, let's say, the questions are somehow similar, the answers are never the same. So the experience is very
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah. And now, what?
And by the way, I
Yeah.
have to say, I was looking at the interviews you've done with Freya Holmer and Useless Game Dev, two of my favorite people on Game Dev YouTube. So you've
Wow.
definitely got a great streak going.
Yeah, I
I
think.
hope I don't ruin it.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm just sad today that the microphone doesn't work. I don't know. Hopefully, you guys and also you can hear me well. I promise the video afterwards is gonna be better. The edited video. Yeah, I'm very sorry. And now back to game development. What tools or game engine did you first start with, and how did you approach change? How did your approach change as you gained more experience?
So when I very first started out, I made the classic mistake of like making my own engine, if you could even call it that. It wasn't an engine; it was just like basic update loop and stuff like that. Um, and then using like Box 2D for physics and stuff. And then later on, I went to Cocos 2DX, which I don't even know if that's around anymore, but it's like a mobile, like a cross-platform Android and iOS game engine. It's more of a framework, I would say, than an engine, but anyways. I used STL for a while, a whole bunch of different things, basically, a bunch of JavaScript frameworks and stuff really early on. And then around like, God, it must have been like 2014, so about 10 years ago. 2014, 2015, yeah, about 10 years ago, I switched to Unity. whatever version it was at the time. It was like Unity 5. It wasn't even the 2020 naming scheme yet. It was Unity 5, I think, or maybe even 4. I think it was 5. But anyways, I switched to that and it kind of like stayed on Unity ever since. Um, and just seeing Jason has experience with Box 2D too. Yeah, fun stuff. We're so spoiled now with game engines. I made a video about this a long time and I got a lot of crap for it, but like I really think like if you're choosing between Unity or Unreal, and maybe to a slightly lesser extent Godot, but if you're choosing between Unity and Unreal, like you can't go wrong. These tools are incredible, and they're the best tools that have ever existed for making games, at least publicly available. You really can't go wrong. I think it's really valuable to just kind of like spend a few hours playing around with each, kind of get a feel for them, figure out which one just kind of like suits your workflow
Mhm.
or makes sense to you, and then just go all in on that and like learn the tool as much as you can because those engines are deep. They have tons and tons and tons of tools built into them, and you can spend years. I've been using Unity for 10 years, and I still learn new things every single day working in it. So I think there's like kind of like depth of experience is more valuable than the choice of engine itself. Um, yeah, I just use Unity because I happen to use Unity, and Unreal wasn't free. It wasn't even royalty at the time. Otherwise, I may have picked Unreal. Who knows? But I don't really see any reason to change right now. And yeah, so I'm just going full steam ahead with Unity at the moment.
Yeah, it's a very popular topic nowadays on YouTube, or it used to be
Yeah,
like this for years. I don't know. I just new. And I saw a lot of reactions like, is Unity better than Unreal or Godot? Or, yeah, it's pretty popular. But I feel like you have to try them out, like each, and then see which one fits in, and then go for it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Just go all in on it and take the years it's gonna like start the years it's gonna take to actually master the tool.
Yeah,
And that's gonna be way more valuable than whatever like new fancy thing comes out on the other engine.
exactly. And now many aspiring developers face roadblocks when starting their project. What advice would you give to someone who's just beginning in game development?
Sorry, what was the first part of that? I missed that.
So many aspiring developers face roadblocks when starting their own project. What advice would you give to someone who's just beginning in game development?
Um, just get started. I know this isn't like the most original take, but I think there's a lot of analysis paralysis that goes into like which engine should I use, which language should I use, which framework or whatever. And at the end of the day, none of those things are as important as just getting going. That's really the most important thing. It's going to take a long time to learn, learn all the things you need to learn. Um, and you shouldn't be kind of like frozen by the first decision that comes up because you're gonna have to make a lot of decisions along the way. You need to get like good at just kind of making decisions. And you also need to learn. I always say this and it sounds silly, but you have to learn how to learn because learning is a skill and it's the most important skill that you can possibly learn. Because once you learn how to learn, you're kind of unstoppable, right? You can just pick things up as you go and you're not so kind of intimidated by whatever unknowns there are. So if have an idea, it's not whiskey, it's tea. I wish. Oh, I'm glad it's not whiskey. That'd be quite a lot of whiskey for 11 a.m. Yeah, you just have to learn how to learn, and once you do that, you really are unstoppable because then you can just pick things up as you go. There's kind of a balance between planning ahead and being overburdened by all the work that's ahead of you because games are a ton of work. There's no denying that, but if you just like put one foot forward and you get going and you kind of like start rolling that snowball, it will build momentum and that can kind of help you carry through as long as you know how to learn and you can kind of like figure out any roadblocks that you come across. I think that's really the most important thing. In terms of how to learn, I don't really have a great answer for that. But I think that's kind of everyone's got their own personal learning style, whether that's just like watching YouTube videos or signing up for some like learning platform or doing more traditional like academic schooling. But you need to figure out what works for you, and you just need to learn how to learn. And that'll help you a ton in game development. It'll also help you a ton in life. Honestly, I think. So yeah, that's my life advice for you. But yeah, learn how to learn.
That's where I am right now in this field. I also saw Jason saying that my spicy take is that like smartphone engines are no longer the problem. Good games are multidisciplinary. The real problem is a lack of broad understanding of gameplay, UI design, story, etc.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, like no game engine is gonna solve no game engine's gonna make your game fun or make it interesting or make it, you know what I mean? Unless you're the first game to use like Nanite or something and you're like a big tech demo, that's maybe one thing, but that's not really a reliable thing to go for. At the end of the day, the engine can't make the game for you and it can't make the game interesting for you, so it's really not what you should be spending all your time thinking about.
Mhm. And now another very popular topic, AI. How do you see AI influencing the future of game development, especially in the industry? Have you considered using AI-driven tools or systems in your own project?
Have I considered using it? No. And the reason is I don't want to take the artistry out of it. I think there's a lot of very hot debates on this. I definitely fall on the side of, I would say, being like anti-AI. I'm not like the most vocal person about it, but personally I just wouldn't use it because I don't think it uh, even if you have the best AI model, the best LLM in the world, and you create beautiful, stunning artwork with it and all this kind of stuff, to me that's not enjoyable. You're not I don't feel like I'm creating it. I feel like I'm just like taking pictures off Google Images or something like that, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, Not to mention all the ethical side of like how the model was trained, work at all the training data and all that kind of stuff. I used to actually work in machine learning as part of my career for many years. So I know how these things work. I know how, neural networks and all that kind of stuff work. I'm not an expert on it, but I know the basics. And it's not like magic, it's just code and algorithms and stuff like that. So I'm not like overly afraid of where things are going. I don't think it's gonna like replace everyone's jobs or anything. Like I don't think all the doom and gloom scenarios are you know, quite warranted just yet. But I also just don't love the direction that that's going. I think it's taking the artistry away. I think, again, this isn't the most original take, but like, why are we automating interesting things like art and not automating like doing the laundry? Like, where's the AI to come do my laundry for me? You know what I mean? Like, automate those tasks. Why are we automating the fun stuff, the interesting things? And then as a player, like, I just don't want to play a game that was made in large part by AI. Um, it just doesn't interest me. I want to know. I want to connect with the creator of the game. I want to know what their intent was. I want to understand like where their heart was in all these decisions that they were making. And I think that kind of gets lost when you introduce AI to it. So that's my take on that. In terms of where things are going, I do think it's kind of inevitable, unfortunately. I know that's really defeatist. But I don't think that there's any getting away from it. Like the kind of cat's out of the bag, and unless there's like extremely stringent regulations on the use of AI, I think it is going to proliferate and it is going to grow and grow and grow. And it's probably at some point in time, whether that's 5 years from now or 50 years from now, there's going to be some point where it's kind of like you know inevitable that the vast majority of games or media is going to be using it. I think that sucks. Um, and hopefully there'll just be like some like small niche like artisan kind of games or something like that for people who are not using it. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah. No, I also respect that a lot. The thing is, it really helps me in terms of coding because I don't really have enough experience with that, and I use code, for example, to actually put into things what I really want, and also the assets from the Unity Asset Store. I think they're very helpful at the beginning. Now I'm trying to make things by myself more, but of course it takes a lot of time. Um, but yeah, the future is a bit scary. I mean, I saw videos when you just type in text, like prompt, you give it to AI and it just creates automatically the entire scene. And
Mhm.
it's really scary.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely speaking from a position of privilege in a sense that like I've already got 10, 15 years under my belt working as a software engineer.
Mhm.
If I was coming out of school right now, I'd probably have a very different opinion because it is a leg up, and why wouldn't you take that? I don't know. I'm ironically like as a software engineer, I'm less concerned about people using AI for coding.
Mhm.
It's more the art side of things that I just think is unfortunate. I still think the ethical issue is there regardless. Like I know that some like I used to write kind of old technical blog posts, and I know some of those are in some of these LLM training sets, and that kind of sucks. But I'm also not really too worried about it because we're all using Stack Overflow anyways. There's not really any difference. Um, I think yeah, it's more the art side. I just think is kind of unfortunate because it's kind of leading to like there's already a proliferation of like lower quality games, I would say, and that's completely fine because those games all have a right to exist. But then when you add AI on top of that, it just becomes a bit more like flop, just kind of like being churned out and content for the sake of content. Um, that's more where to me I think it's really unfortunate. Um, but it's a really complicated topic for sure. Like it's not something that's like exactly easy to be binary about. So yeah,
Yeah.
it kind of is what it is. I think, like I said, I think the cat's out of the bag, and I don't think it's going back in. So I think it's probably something we all have to learn to live with, whether we like it or not. And I think that's kind of unfortunate personally, but it is what it is. So
Yeah.
what are you gonna do?
I know I said previously that even though the questions are somehow um, close to each other, the answers are always different. But in terms of AI, also Freya and user game devs are concerned about the art side of things, not the coding or yeah. So I see, and it's true that I think most concerning one. We also have a lot of comments from Jason. I'm gonna read them. One question is learning thought. You have a goal. If you learn without a goal, you rarely learn and just circle problems and stay in a comfort zone. Yeah.
Oh
Well,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. You need to have. That's why I say like you should kind of learn as you go and figure things out as you go because you have like a clear vision of like whatever game it is that you're trying to make. And if you just sit there and you're like, I need to learn all of these things before I start, that's going to be overwhelming. And if you don't have a game idea or you don't have like some objective, you're just like wandering the void and you're like, there's just so many things you could learn. How do you know which things are actually important? So yeah, having a goal is very, very helpful in that and like structuring your learning. So 100% agree with Jason there.
mhm. He also said, I'm on the fence. I agree on all that, but I also know how hard it is to communicate an idea in your brain. I think as a communication tool, it's amazing. Game development has a lot you need to know. AI less. The community is discipline. You don't know intimately. It can make intent stronger if I use as a communication tool and not a final product. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So, Jason, are you talking about like communication between kind of team members, or is it like communication with the final user? Like, for example, like if you're not, say you're an engineer and you're not a strong like 2D artist, using AI to kind of fill that gap in order to communicate your vision to the players. Is that what you mean? Um, because personally, I would still prefer to see, you know, I hate to say this, but like lesser art or kind of rougher art or whatever it is that's actually handmade rather than AI generated. I just to me like there's more personality and more yeah, just more personality kind of shines through in that sense. When you use AI, there's like this kind of sameness about them, um, and then again, the whole ethical quandary is the whole other part of that. But just in terms of the end product, I still think that AI has a little bit of sameness about it. But that said, like I mean, assets are totally cool. I'm not opposed to using assets. So yeah, I don't know. It's really complicated, like I said.
Yeah, what I was thinking about is also the fact that I'm besides very interested in the game, also very interested about the person behind the game. And just the thought that there's no one actually behind it, it's weird and hard to process.
Yeah,
Like,
100%. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, like when I'm playing a game, it's almost like a conversation between you and the game's designer, right? And everything has intent, and every little like light and every little whatever it is has a meaning and has a purpose, and if there's a reason that it's there. Um, I just think that's lost. I think it's really a shame.
Mhm.
Oh, so
Also,
he's talking more
yeah,
about like a consultant. That's interesting. I hadn't really thought about using AI in that sense. If I communicate music with pixel audience, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. I think you're still left with the ethical issues of where the training data came from. I don't think that there's any like, oh well, this isn't actually going to the final product, so it's not unethical. I still think it's unethical no matter what. If people's art was used to train the model without their consent, full stop. In my opinion, it's unethical to use that. Um, if you put that aside and you assume that there's a model that was created all ethically or whatever, that is an interesting use case of using AI as this kind of starting point. I think that could be interesting for sure.
because also the same with art, being scared gothic plus cyberpunk, but being able to dial a percentage literally starts A concept artist or with a clearer communication language. Mhm. Mhm. Another question
Yeah.
that just popped into my head is that when you want to launch your first game, do you think it's better to start with Steam and then try to publish it on Magazine Play, App Store, so on, or focusing more on the Android part and then switching to Windows and actually Steam then?
Sorry, it broke up a little bit there, but you're saying focusing on mobile versus Windows?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. I think they're really different markets. So I think if you're looking at it from the point of view of like a business, I think they're very, very different markets. You kind of need to understand the strengths and negatives of both, how you get reach, how you monetize. And it's almost like two entirely separate products. Like taking the same game from Windows and putting it on mobile or vice versa, you kind of have to like again, if you're looking at this as a business, you kind of have to tailor them to the different markets, so they're kind of different. Um, in terms of just like learning experience, I think mobile is a perfectly great way to do it because you can find a lot more people who have a phone capable of playing your game probably than a computer, especially if you're younger and when you're in school. Like everyone has a smartphone, but not everyone has like a gaming rig or something like that. Um, so I think it's a great way. It's a great way to kind of like go around. You can show people on your phone anytime and get a lot of feedback really quickly. And it's just like really kind of rewarding to have like your game in your pocket all the time. I think that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I've never like, at least not in like the last 10 years, really like seriously looked at mobile as a market, so I don't really know too much about it. Um, I don't really like play games on my phone anymore. I used to a lot when I was younger, but nowadays I don't really as much. So yeah, I don't know too much about it, but I think in terms of development, yeah, it can definitely be a good starting point.
Did you have any favorite mobile game or even computer game?
Let me see what I have on my phone because I haven't played games on my phone in like years. I don't even know if I have chess. um, Yeah, I don't really play games on my phone anymore. In terms of computer games, yeah, I mean, like I said, I love like walking sims, like Vanishing of Ethan Carter, What Remains of Edith Finch, Journey, a lot of that kind of like emotional, heavier walking sim kind of games. Um, One of my favorite games is Hellblade, the first Hellblade. I just absolutely adore that game. I think it's really brilliant. I took a lot of inspiration from that, and I just absolutely love that game. Um, I'm a huge baby with horror. Like I cannot watch horror movies. I cannot play horror games. I played The Last of Us and I barely got through it. Like it was an absolute nightmare to me. But for some reason, over like the last month, I've been forcing myself to just get over it and play horror games. So I just played Dead Space, which I really enjoyed. And I'm playing Resident Evil 3, which is my first Resident Evil game ever. It happened to be on like PS Plus. So I'm trying to get into like horror games because I love horror aesthetic, but I just cannot handle jump scares and stuff. So I'm trying to like grow up a little bit and deal with that. Um, yeah, I would say like darker, moodier, emotional games is kind of always my forte or my preference.
Interesting. Very interesting. Are there any upcoming indie games or developers whose work excites or inspires you?
Mm, yeah, for sure. I'm gonna butcher his last name. One second, let me put it up because I can never. Sorry, one second.
Understandable as well.
I don't even know if you pronounce this. Alex Canaris Saturu. Anyways, the developer of a game called Mythwrecked. He made a game called Roki, and now he's working on a game called Mythwrecked. It looks brilliant. He's a really great guy. We've met a couple times, and just a brilliant guy. And I'm really looking forward to playing that. Kevin Anderson, who's the developer of a game called Paper Clay, looks like a lot of fun. It's like a 3D platformer kind of collectathon, but it's just got a ton of personality and plays like this little chicken, and it looks like an absolute blast. And there's like games on I see on Twitter like every day that I'm just like blown away by it, just really inspired by it, and really look forward to playing them. Um, there's a game called The Milk Lake, which just looks really, really interesting. I don't know the developer of that, but it looks great. Um, let's see. Oh, some humble onion. His game already came out. Smushy Come Home. He worked with the same publisher as I did. But Smushy Come Home is just, it's got the most personality of any game I've ever played. It's just absolutely beautiful. It's super cute and charming. And I would recommend anyone to play that. I don't think you could possibly play that and not be, come away feeling like just absolutely giddy and happy.
Wow, okay. Another thing to try later on. Now, looking beyond parallel nodes, do you have any plans or ideas for future projects?
I have started prototyping a few things, but like I said, I'm trying to take my time and just make sure I'm kind of like ready to start the next project. Um, so I don't really have anything I can share yet, but it's kind of like going back to a conversation of like narrative versus gameplay. That's really my big conundrum right now. I have a couple ideas that I think are strong. All I think could potentially be viable projects. But it's, do I go down the narrative route again, or do I go more of a gamey kind of game? And just before this call, I was kind of prototyping something that's a little bit of a marriage of the two that I think could be interesting, kind of like in a slightly survival horror kind of genre. Not full blown horror, but like dark and moody and stuff, with some kind of more actiony gameplay, but still having a very heavy story. And I think that could potentially be good, but then it's back to scope and whether that's too big of a project. So I'm trying to figure that out.
Very interesting. For me, it's like I see a game and I suddenly get very interested about the creator as well. And then I just follow like the learning curve and all the games and projects they are working on. And it's very interesting to see, if they also switch their preferences over time and try to approach gameplay more than the narrative or, yeah, so it's very interesting. Well, I guess there are no more. No, one more comment. Jason says, a super game dev recommendation is one called The Magic Circle. It's a game about
Mm.
game development. Wow. Okay. Very interesting. It's trouble, right? But fun mechanics. Okay, good to know. I'll probably give it a try at some point. That's cool.
Oh, I'm looking at the Steam page now. This actually looks really, really funny.
Wow. Guys, if you have
Can
any,
you release a game?
yeah. No, I just wanted
I
to
was
say,
gonna say the tagline is "Can you release a game from the inside?" It's interesting.
mm-hmm.
Like you're like inside a game making a game. It looks like it's cool.
Yeah. So now that it's your time to shine, if you have questions, just put them in the comments. Um, Jason is very active, so not a lot of people.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we both appreciate it. I mean, we had a very nice time, but well, I guess we're just gonna wait a bit more. But for me, these were my questions, and I'm very, very happy that we did this. So thank you so much for
Yeah,
sharing your
thank you for
journey.
having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
me.
Pleasure was all mine.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your journey and insights. It's been a pleasure learning more about your creative process, and I'm excited to experience more of your work in the future. Like I said, so looking forward to it. Jason said, no question, but love the video. Looking forward to picking up the game. Make sure to do so. You have
Awesome,
the link
thanks.
in the description. Download it, buy it, play it right now. Please. I will also do that. I promise I'm gonna do live streams with it. I will, but I will see when. I will try my
Yeah, appreciate it. It's no worries.
Yeah. Thank you so
And
much.
thanks, Jason.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. I think no one has any more questions.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you very much for being here, and I'm looking forward to your next project. Okay. Thanks. And bye. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. Oh my God, guys. Um, wait. Can you give me 1 second, and I'll be right back. Hopefully you can see me. Wait a sec.